basically what I did is I had the hard ground on there, and I just like made the line etching. And then I printed it once, and I painted on there with just some India ink, with like 3 different darknesses of India ink. I just painted where I want my darks to be. So the only thing on the plate right now is a very simple line etching. This part is just me, like with, the only part that I could reproduce right now is that simple line etching. This I made with just India ink, 3 different like colors. This is to sort of give me an idea of where I want to go with the darks. The kind of mood that I want to establish in this print is that the light is coming from the window and there's no light in the room. All the light is sort of coming in the window. So things in the foreground are the darkest, and things outside the window, oh, did you just do that? Thank you. And things outside in the landscape are like the brightest. And so I'm gonna do 3 stages of Aquatint this time. I'll probably do some more things to the print later on, but right now I'm gonna do 3 stages of Aquatint, the lightest being outside, and then the darkest being the figures like in the foreground. And the only thing on the plate is just this very simple line etching. I put hard ground on it, I took it home, I drew on there, and it's really just to give me an idea about where I want the Aquatint to go. So after I printed it, this is very important, I washed the ink off with Gamsol, and then I degreased it with alcohol. Everything that we do now with the Aquatint box and the resist that we put on, it's important that the surface of the plate is as unaffected by grease and ink and oil and Gamsol as possible. So that's why I degrease it with alcohol. There's going to be these tiny, almost microscopic chips of rosin that are going to fall onto the plate, and I want to give them as much chance as possible to stick onto the plate. And that's my next step. I'm also going to Aquatint, or I'm also going to put the rosin onto this plate that we did in here for our last like demo plate. And then we can, there's also like a little square on here. I left some open area, and we can like experiment with that too. I might like chop that off later and work on this plate more. So our first step, both of these plates have been cleaned of ink and degreased with alcohol, and now they're ready for the rosin box. Inside the rosin box, there's a big fan, and there's all of this ground up rosin. It's basically tree sap that has been ground into a fine dust, and it's in the bottom of the box. When I turn the box on, the fan's gonna start and it's gonna blow the dust around. I'm gonna put this in here for 4 minutes. I'm gonna take it out, and then I'm gonna cook it on the hot plate. This rosin is the same stuff that ballerinas use on the tips of their toes. It's the same stuff that violin players use on their bowstrings. It's also pretty toxic. Like for both of those things, people just like have it on their hands and stuff. But it's usually we have people wear a mask, but we're already wearing a mask. We also usually have people wear goggles, but because of COVID and like all using the same goggles, we are going to strike that from our safety measure, and we're just going to say wear a dust mask, which we are. But also I would just say, like, it's not that, if you get it on your hands and stuff, it's actually not that hazardous. It's breathing it in that's like the worst thing. So so when you have the door open, just don't like hang out in there like looking at it and stuff. Just sort of put your plate in and close the door. So the directions are right here. It's very slightly tricky. Here's the dial. Turn the dial past 1, then back to 30. What does that mean? Here's the dial right here, and you can see 1 is pretty close to the end on the dial. The reason that it wants you to turn it past 1 and back to 30 is if you just turn it to 30, nothing will happen. So I turn it past 1 and then back to 30. Does that make sense, kind of? So that's why it says that. Past 1, that turns it on, and then back to 30, and that's going to time it to spin the fan for 30 seconds. And that's now getting all the rosin dust up into the rosin box. These things are, oh yeah, so that's closed and the fans are spinning and I'm just waiting. I've got my plates ready and they're gonna go in there after the machine stops. 30 seconds. What's that? You could, for sure. You can have, because the tray is here, so the motor just stopped, and now I want to wait 1 minute. The reason is that there's chunks of, there's a very fine powder floating around in there, but there's a few like chunks floating around in there, and so I want to let those chunks settle out before I put my plate in there, and that's why I'm waiting 1 minute. But yeah, the tray in there is quite big, so you could fit multiple people. I would say, like, if you're gonna do multiple people, have one person, put them on a plate like this, and have one person put it in and out, just so that if there's multiple people, like, scrambling to get their thing in, you don't, like, knock the other plates or something. Just, like, coordinate when you're gonna put it in there. Has it been 1 minute, you think? I think so. So now I'm gonna take my plate, and I'm gonna put it in there. Oh wait, there's something in there already. Now I'm gonna wait 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Maybe I'll just keep track of it up there. It's like a little, the clock says 3:12, so I'll wait till like 3:15. And in that time, I'll draw a little drawing of what's happening. All right, so here is the side of my plate, okay? That's looking down the side. Let's say my plate's this thick. I've beveled my edges nicely, there's my bevel. There's what the plate looks like looking at it from the side. Right now, these little, or actually, let's go like this. These little dust particles of rosin are falling on the plate. So they're little round things falling on the plate. When I melt the plate on the hot plate, all of those dust particles that are like little circles are gonna be like little buttons. They're gonna fall on the plate. Then, when I put it in the acid's gonna eat down into the plate around the buttons. And that is where my ink is gonna collect. It's gonna collect inside those, the trenches kind of around the buttons. All of that's happening on such a micro scale that you can't see it with the naked eye. And open bite, in this case, is when the acid eats so far around those buttons that the buttons just pop off. And that's when I've tried, and it's just similar to the line etching, instead of getting a deep dark inside those areas where I left it in the acid so long, that would actually be a lighter gray. But the beauty of Aquatint is that you can re-Aquatint a section, and then instead of getting, so what that would look like is instead of getting an even sort of static of tone, it would create a really uneven surface if you double Aquatinted it, and that would create the deepest black. And that's probably how those like Kerry James Marshall prints were that had just like the really rich black in the background. Double Aquatint is sort of like the way to get a real deep tone. We're almost there, 1 more minute. Any questions about that stuff so far? Seem pretty easy so far? It's cool. It's pretty easy. Yeah.
Do you block parts off, or do you wipe it off after?
That's our next step. Blocking parts off. It's all about that question you just asked is like the very kind of essence of what we're doing is the blocking it out. All right. 1 more minute. Yeah, and that's why you think when we looked at that Mary Cassatt, that very first stage where there was just gray on the plate, and then it almost looked like a white brush strokes. That's why working with Aquatint is like working in reverse, because where we paint is stopped out, and we're putting it in the acid. So our paint marks are white, basically, and then at each level we're adding to it, and we're making more areas, and it's getting darker. And today, I think I'm gonna try to make 3 stages of Aquatint, and you don't have to do this after each stage. You do this once, and then you can even do like 5 or 6 stages of Aquatint, just having done this once. So you're just painting, putting it in the acid, painting more, putting it in the acid. Okay, I think that was 4 minutes. Let's see. The way to tell if you've done anything is to look at, like if you guys want to come a little closer and look at this, to look at when you move the plate. See the difference between that and that? That shows how much dust is on there. Let me move this one and you can see it too. See the difference between that and that? It's very hard to tell whether the dust is on the surface of the plate unless you stand way down and look at it, and it looks like the top of like a dusty mirror. If you look at it from the very side, you can see the white dust on it. But the best way to tell if you've done it and if there's dust on it is to just move the plate slightly from where you had it on its tray, and you can see. It's like, you know, when you move something on the mantle and like you can see how dusty your house is, just like this. And now our next step, but also be very careful when you're moving this around, because those little balls of rosin are just sitting on the surface of this. They're very subject to being like moved around. So every time I carry this, I'm just being really careful about it. I don't want to like throw it on the hot plate, or what I really don't want to do is take my pencil as I'm moving it around and like drag my pencil into the area, because that will definitely make a line. So now I'm going to take it to the hot plate, and I'm going to do these guys one at a time, just so you can see the, first I'll move this guy on there. Oops, I did what I said not to do. Okay, now this part that I'm about to show you, oh yeah, can you put that on the press right there? Oh no, I guess on the table. Or right there. Can you put it on the press? Thank you. All right, so this part happens really fast. Well, it happens sort of slow, and then suddenly it goes fast. And it's good to have a pencil or something sharp like an etching needle while you're standing here, because sometimes the plate, okay, it's happening. All right, you can see, oh my God, it happens so fast. All right, I'm gonna take it off. We'll be able to see it. I'll show you it on the next plate. I'll describe it first, and then I'll show it to you. All right, so, sorry. You have to like look at it. Maybe we can even try to get it on video. Here, can you take that? Okay, so what happens is, you're looking at it from the side, okay? And you can see that dust on the surface as though you're looking at a dusty shelf. And you're watching it from the side, and suddenly you'll see it start to clear. And that's when the rosin is melting onto the plate. But if you leave it on there much past when it got clear, it will liquefy so thoroughly that it'll just coat your plate completely. So that's why it's like a little bit tricky to get it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm watching it. Right now I can see the dust on the side of the plate. And now I can see it start to go. So if you're right on the side, you can see here, you can see there, it's starting to travel across. You see that?
Yeah.
It's defogging, yeah. It's like it's defogging. But if I just like walked out and went to have a coffee, that would get so melted that it would actually just seal the plate up. And now I'm gonna try to get it off. And then I take it off. And now it's really hot, but when it touches the glass, it'll be all right. You can you kind of smell the rosin as it cooked on this? actually, I'll get rid of this.
Now what happens
yeah.
if it does just coat the plate?
It would be like you wouldn't, it might just, it might just not etch at all. Like you might have a situation where you put it in the acid and it was either kind of molted looking or it just might not etch at all. So don't do it. But also, I mean, I've never seen it. It's like a risk that it could happen, but I've actually never seen anyone do it. Just wait for it to get clear, take it off, and maybe I'm being like too excited about it, but just wait for it to clear, take it off, and you'll be fine. So now, as soon as the plate gets like to where you can touch it, you're ready to start stopping out the Aquatint to go in the acid. So now I'm going to look at my drawing and I'm going to say, where in the drawing do I want white, the brightest whites? Is there anywhere in the drawing that I want absolute, like no tone at all? The only place that I, and actually you guys could play, does anybody want to like paint on that one? The only place that I sort of identified that I wanted white whites was inside the kind of tree on the exterior or whatever. Yeah, you can do that. Oh wait, you could, or any of those brushes if you want it to be finer.
And that stop out you're using right now? Or?
Okay, right now I'm using hard ground.
Oh.
The stop out that we used for the edges of our plate is, this stuff is just slightly finer. You can get it on a smaller brush and you can make like a more detailed drawing with it. The stop out is just like a slightly, more nimble material than that red stuff. And basically I'm just painting my whites. Where do I want my whites?
And the hard ground, it dries as opposed to the step out just staying kind of gooky.
Exactly, the hard ground will dry completely. Actually, I think I'll just make my windows completely white. I'll probably do a couple like layers of Aquatint.
And should we be aiming to kind of lightly cover it, or that depends on like various factors?
Okay, that's a great question. The stop out, like you can see how like my brush stroke is darker in areas and lighter in areas. That's not what I'm gonna get when it'll just be like as though I had like a white, it won't look like that. You'll see. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. Like as long as you have it like pretty coated, the acid like won't get through that. So actually that's the only area that I want to be totally white. Maybe I'll make a little highlight on here or something. Maybe I'll make a highlight on the hands. And I'll make that mask white. Okay, this is the only, oh yeah, and also, do you guys wanna, here, let me draw a little line right here. This is the edge of what I wanna do. Does anyone else wanna draw something? I'll make it go right here. Oh, you know what we should do too? We'll make a little, this up here will be a little stage. I'll make this kind of into a little test stage thing. Okay, what does anybody else want to draw like over here? Something. Yeah. It might make it more exciting when it like comes out of the press.
So I shouldn't draw a smiley face.
You should draw a smiley face. You should definitely draw a smiley face. My favorite little part of our test print was somebody wrote like hello or something in there. Was that you?
Yeah. Hello. Oh, I'll make the smiley face on here. What was this one you?
I wasn't over here.
Mm-hmm.
Whites.
I was gonna do.
I really liked I thought our test plate was because you drew that little eye on our test plate.
We need like a
I did the eye.
filbert.
I like that. The eye was really cool.
I think you're supposed to.
Ooh. Ah.
We also have 2 more stages too. So what you're drawing now is going to be like the white part.
What if you try to do like a slight highlight, maybe on like someone's face or something, and you're using a liquid hard ground?
That's good. It will be a light highlight, but it doesn't have any ability to fade into, if you want something that kind of fades into darkness, that's when you have to activate the burnisher. That's when you have to like burnish it in. Like in those Marie Cassatt things where she was like burnishing in kind of like almost like tone on a face, that she was doing with the burnisher. This has a very rigid mark between the phases. You'll see when we print it. It has like it has a look. It's hard. It's like with etching, it's either like on or off. There's not a lot of. It's hard to like make a painterly mark with this process. The look is more like interesting. All right. Now let's go over to the acid. Again, I'm being like pretty careful when I touch the surface of these. Let's walk over there. Okay, sorry, there's a little column in the way here. So if you guys, can you hold on with that one? Okay, so if you notice, there's an Aquatint scale over here on the wall. It shows how many seconds the plate has to be in the acid. There's actually, maybe if you guys come all the way over here, you can see a little better. There's sort of more action on this side, I think. It shows how many seconds and minutes the plate has to be in the acid to achieve that tone. This wasn't made in our acid with our like current conditions, but it'll just give you a ballpark of like how long to leave it in for. The main thing that I want you to see with this scale though is that whoever made this this tonal chart did a really beautiful job of having the perfect stages from light gray to dark gray. They made it look very incremental, but you'll notice that in that first couple minutes, a lot happens. So 20 seconds, 40 seconds, 1 minute, huge shifts in contrast happen in that amount of time. But then you get into minute 20, minute 40, 2 minutes. In these phases, all the way up to 8 minutes, 40 seconds, the longer it's in the acid, the less happens. Does that make sense? That first couple seconds, that first minute really are crucial. The reason I'm saying that is a lot of people are like, okay, I'm gonna stick it in there and I want a really light gray. The light grays happen in 20 seconds, 40 seconds, really fast. There's a huge difference between 20 seconds and 1 minute. There's not much difference between 6 minutes and 8 minutes. See what I'm trying to like suggest? It's like really fast acting, and then the longer it's in, the slower it acts. So 20 seconds in the beginning of the process is a huge difference. 20 seconds at the end of the process is not that much of a difference. So that said, will somebody time 20 seconds for me? Okay. Is it on?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And you can actually see immediately, you can see the acid starting to eat the plate. Oh, the other thing I forgot to do is I forgot to stop out my edges, but I can always burnish those.
Okay.
That's it. Oh my God. I'm gonna take out my big plate first because I sort of care more about it. Not because I care about the one that we made together too. And then I really have to go directly over to the sink and wash it off. I know I touched it with my hands. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. I'm not gonna like melt and die.
Okay, everyone was all whispering.
Don't. I'm not gonna. When I put this on YouTube, I'll like make it private so only you guys can see this. So
Or suddenly there's just a skip ahead a couple of seconds.
Jump cut.
Anyways, now the plate's out.
Next time I'll actually wear gloves the way you're supposed to.
I don't know. You were terrified of it, that was for sure.
It skips ahead a few minutes and I'm just at the emergency room. All right, now we're gonna go back over.
Do you need towels?
Oh yeah, well, I have time.
Yeah. So it's just like, oh wait, I have a person. Wait, I have a situation.
And then, oh my god. Overlapping themes, people, places, objects. Now.
All right. I would actually recommend at this stage not to do what I'm doing. Not just because I stuck my hands in the acid, but also because the tiny particles of rosin are sitting on the surface, but they're really easy to chip off. They're not really embedded on there with any sturdiness at all. So at this stage, maybe you touch it lightly with a towel or whatever, but at this stage, just let it dry and just let it do its thing. Also, let it dry thoroughly before you put any hard ground on. But let me see if I can just cheat and do it anyway, in the interest of showing you guys a full range. If I do this, is it gonna mess it up? Yeah, I'll just, well. The water does not affect the rosin, and that's the reason that we use the rosin, is because the rosin is not water soluble. The water, yeah, it shouldn't affect the rosin. I actually do have to wait for this to dry. So here's what I suggest. I'm going to describe what I'm going to do next, and then you guys are going to go on a break. So here's what I'm going to do next. In my next phase, that is going to be white. Now I decide what I want to be the lightest gray. And now I'm going to paint what I want to keep as light gray. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's say I want,
So you could do this all in one day.
you could do it all in one day, but you have a month. So don't save it till the last day, because usually what happens is you make the first print and you're like, it's not quite what I wanted. And then you're going to go back into it and make other stuff, make other changes. But yes, you could easily do 3 stages of Aquatint in one day. So basically what I'm going to do next is I'm going to say, what if I wanted everything but her to be light gray? Then my next stage is I paint out everything but the figure and put it in the acid. Yes.
So for our 3 editions, are we doing it once full for one, and then maybe can it be done all at the same time?
You guys are really just going for all at the same time here. No, the edition that you make in edition of 3 has to be exactly the same. Everything in the edition has to be exactly the same. But you might make 4 or 5 prints leading up to your edition to get it perfect, and then turn in your edition of 3. So I think, like, my ideal thing is if you guys made like 10 prints in all, make a print at this stage, see what it looks like. Maybe if you like it, you even edition it, and then keep moving forward and keep sort of printing, testing. When you get the perfect thing a week, 2 weeks before the crit, then you make your perfect edition of 3. Remember that one of my rules for the project is you have to work in here every day. And so what that means is you can't say in week 2, I made my edition of 3, now what do I do? You can't do it. You can always go back into it, and that's the beauty of editioning these things along the way. If you get something you like, edition it. That might be the best state that it's ever going to be in. But keep working on it, keep changing it, keep adding to it. And I guarantee that there will be beautiful things will come out of it as you do it further, yes.
If we have like extra time, or just we want to come in outside, could we go back at Aquatint for our last project?
Yes, I would love that. Yeah, you can do that. And if you want to like show us, if you want to show that in critique, if you want to like have it be part of your small kind of progress critique, that would be great. And I would love to see that. It'd be very cool. And some of yours would look really cool with some Aquatint too. So yeah, there'll be other things to work on. You could Aquatint your last plate. If you want to get into color, you could do that. There'll be tons of stuff to work on. So part of your assignment really is like twofold. Part of it is making a perfect edition using stages of Aquatint. part of it is just being in here working. And if that means you perfected this plate and are happy with it and moved on to Aquatint your old plate, that's a great way to use your time as well. But I want you to use your time well, and I want you to be working every day when you're in here. And by working, I also like, you know, save all the drawing and kind of thinking and concept stuff for outside class. Use the class time for your on press, your proofing, your additioning, you're using what you can't do at home in here. Does that make sense? Yes.
If we wanted to use like color on these, or like use color.
Yeah.
Two things. One, would we have to get the color, or do you have color here?
We haven't.
Okay, and then the second one is like, can you mix the colors like paint, or what the color you have is what you got?
Okay, the thing with etching is that you can mix the color like paint in terms of you can look at two colors that we have and you can say, you've got this great red and this great cyan, can I make a purple? Sure, yes, you can mix the colors that way. It's harder to have two colors on the same plate because just like our black ink, there's the area that it is in the line, but then it sort of like plate tone kind of connects. So it looks a little funny sometimes to have like two colors on the same plate, but people do it beautifully and effectively. And so yes, you can totally experiment with color, but that's why I was saying that those Marie Cassatt prints where there's like multiple colors, she has 5 different plates and the colors are separated out into those 5 different plates. If you wanted to get into something like that, I would love to show anybody that sort of experimented that widely, I would love to show you how to register it, but it's complicated and we probably don't have, you know, it takes other plates. You have to buy like other plates. Yes.
So with like this thing, like
Yes.
with the dust, I'm just like a little confused. So like say I like do that, I wash it off and then I want to go like another shade.
Yeah.
Do I put it back in
No,
there first?
that's the beauty,
Okay.
is that now the Aquatint is on there. It's delicate. It wouldn't I couldn't like take it home in my backpack and like take it back the next day. It's delicate, but as long as I'm careful with it, I can make like 5 stages of Aquatint without putting it back in the rosin box. And so that's what I'm gonna do while you guys take a short break. Actually, maybe, you know what I'll just do in front of you right now because it's almost dry? I'll just show you what I mean by I'm gonna block out everything except for the lady. Now, everything over here I want to be that mid-tone gray. And if you guys wanna play with this plate some more, anybody could do that.
Before you print, do you take the rosin off?
Yes. Yeah. Before I print, I'm gonna have to take the hard ground off, the rosin off. I'm gonna have to take everything off before I print. And I'm gonna degrease it too. So now I just take everything but her, because she is gonna be the darkest thing in the image. I'm doing it kind of fast, but I'll work on this later and show it to you. I'll make it beautiful. Just like you guys, I'll work on this in several stages. So now everything but her is gonna be gray. If anybody wants to like paint on the rest of this one too, we could do that. And now I'm gonna put this back in the acid and I'm gonna do it all the way to 1 minute. And then I'm actually gonna do another stage after that, but I'll show you that later. Yes.
Do you have to like keep track of how long you've had it in there
Yes.
already? So,
Yes.
Okay.
So this has already been in there for 20 seconds. I'm adding that 20 seconds to if I'm going for like a certain color in that gray, I'm adding that 20 seconds to it. Great point. Thank you for remembering to make it. Okay, it is now, well, actually, what time is it really? Does somebody have the actual? 3:31. Let's come back. 3:31. Let's come back at 3:50. And when we come back, I'll show you, I'll print this. Okay? 3:50. Yeah.